Shooters, you are now in your prep time. Your prep time has ended. With the magazine of 15 rounds making the addition one weapon. Is the line ready? The line is ready. Shooters firing 5 rounds in a time limit of 60 seconds. Stand by. Contact.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Pit Talk, pulling pits and opinions with your host, Gunny G, where service members help service members, period. Follow, like, subscribe everywhere you get your podcast and on all social media platforms. Let me know how I'm doing. Any criticism is good criticism. Let's get into it because I know your time's precious. You don't get paid to listen. I don't get paid to talk. We got a special guest by the name of Colonel Daniel Whitley, hailing in from, totally forgot on my show notes, but he's going to introduce himself, and we're going to get right into the meat and potatoes. Sir, go ahead and introduce yourself. Say hello to the listeners.
All right. Good afternoon. Good evening, everybody. Colonel Dan Whitley. I am the Deputy Commander for Marine Corps Installations West, Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton.
Whoa. That title has command presence, has beef to it, sir. That's nice. Go introduce, get a little bit of background. Where are you from? How long you been in? Duty stations, capacities, billets. Where have you been at?
Okay. Quick background on me. Born and raised in New York and New Jersey. Got commissioned right out of college. Been on active duty for the past 27 years. I am an artillery officer by trade. Spent most of my time here on the West Coast. Commanded all the way up to artillery battalion as an 05. I had 06 command here at Camp Pendleton as well. I spent some time on the recruit depot doing recruit training. I've spent time as a recruiting station commanding officer. I've done time in the Pentagon on the Joint Staff. I've done some time working with the Navy down in Coronado on amphibious doctrine type stuff. And in the last 4 years, I've been here at Marine Corps Installations West, both 06 Command and then now on the staff, currently serving as the Deputy Commander for the region.
That sounds awesome, man. I wish I could do all those things. That sounds like a good time. I don't know how long your career has been. Pretty long, but has it all been rainbows and Lucky Charms?
I've been pretty fortunate. I don't have much to complain about. I could say I haven't had a hard job in the Marine Corps. They might have been demanding, but I can't say they've been hard. I've had some great experiences and unique opportunities that most people, especially those outside of service, probably never would have had.
Yeah, you're right. You're right about that one. Even in service, I haven't had those opportunities. So still counting my, hopefully domino effect kind of leads me to those duty stations. Will be awesome. But you talk about demanding and you talk about time and hard. And I know you got a family, right, sir?
I do. I'm married with 3 kids.
Awesome. Any more?
Any more kids?
Yes.
No, I'm a little bit too old for that.
Okay. So you got 3 wife. Awesome. Sounds like a beautiful family. And you talk about demanding, hard, right? How do you balance your family time with your military time?
I mean, it's hard sometimes. The different jobs will have different demands on your time. I've always been good at separating work life from family life. Even though some of our jobs, especially as a commanding officer, I've got 9 years as a commanding officer, so a lot of those command duties, enter the home, and sometimes at not so good hours. So sometimes it intervenes with family life, but I've never let the emotions kind of spill over from what I do at work to what I do at home. I always kept them separate. And part of it too is just informing the family of kind of what to expect with the jobs, especially some of the more demanding jobs when you're working more hours on the road, in the field, deployed, those kinds of things, just managing their expectations of what life as a military spouse, military dependent is going to be like.
That's good. That's good, sir. I know that we all as service members provide financially to their family, but how do you still be emotionally present after all that time?
I've never, despite some of the jobs I've had, which I've had some demanding jobs, like I said, but I've never been emotionally drained from my work experience. I just haven't. I've always, been, very happy to go home, to visit with family. So that's going home has always been a good thing. It's always been a positive outlook for me, kind of stress relief from the work stuff. And I've done extended periods of time away from family. I've done countless deployments, countless days, months, weeks in the field. I've done a 3-year, as you were, you do your bachelor tour in DC when my family stayed in California. So I'm pretty well versed with family separation. And I've always used the family time as kind of a positive outlet for work stress.
That's good. Yeah, everybody needs to decompress. So it sounds like your family, your kids, your wife, where you're decompressed. That's awesome. We talk about family. We talk about values wanting to instill in our children. How do you do that with the demanding job that you have? Because as a commanding officer, I can only imagine there's a lot on your plate, a lot of meetings, a lot of this, a lot of that. How do you still find the time to in terms of values and beliefs do you want to instill in your children, or do they kind of mirror the military lifestyle, so to speak?
Well, I don't know if they mirror the military lifestyle so much, but I think they'll marry your personal beliefs and your personal actions. So I think modeling good behavior is one of them. Just like I do for the younger Marines, I try to be a model of good behavior, kind of the beacon on a hill, if you will, that others will take on your actions and your habits and those kinds of things for better or for worse. So I start with that and then just talk to them about what's important to me. What are, values that I hold dear? What am I going to expect out of them, and what am I not going to be happy about if they do, and just try to steer them in the right direction. But it starts with you setting the right example. That's
good, sir. And so you talk about setting a good example. There's always going to be disagreements, right? There's always going to be different types of parenting styles, so to speak. And it sounds like you've been in long enough. I think that you've been married long enough. I'm assuming that you and your wife have started off similarly, or now have similar parenting styles. How does that take effect into your demanding job or your demanding bullets that you have? Is there a disagreement there? Is there something that we need to navigate, or something that young servicemen need to know moving into marriage, how those differ?
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be differences of opinion in marriage. I mean, I think it starts with doing the proper screening, just like a recruiter does with any kind of applicant. Before you get married, make sure you know what you're getting into. Make sure your partner knows what they're getting into as far as the military lifestyle goes, and what demands are going to be placed on the family that are unique to military families. So I'd say it starts there, but also know that once you do go into a marriage, whether you're 1 year into a marriage or 20, like I am, that there's still going to be disagreements, differences, and that you have to realize there's going to be a compromise involved. You're not always going to get your way, and there's probably some hard and fast thresholds that won't be broken. But at the end of the day, some you're going to have to give and take on certain things as far as how you raise the family, and as long as you both can realize that you're both going to give and take, and not everyone's going to win all the times. I think you can resolve yourself to moving forward in some kind of compromise situation as far as how you raise your children.
Absolutely, sir. That's if you're listening, if you just tuned in, we got Colonel Daniel Whitley hailing in from Mickey West, Camp Pendleton West. That's awesome, sir. I do want to ask. Right, this is going to kind of go into our next set of questions, so to speak. Right, we talk about self-care, maintaining an identity, right? And a lot of us find identity in the Marine Corps, in the military. Service members find identity in the military, and they kind of lose, and the waters get blurry in terms of family, husband, father, or mother, right? Because servicemen and women. How do we prioritize self-care and maintain our identity as an individual, vice all eggs in the basket? How do you do that?
Well, I mean, I think you're an individual first before you came into the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps doesn't strip your individualism completely away from you, but it does conform you to standards that are expected of you as a Marine, regardless of what your rank is. So I think you have to stay true to who you are as a person, as long as it complies with, expected behavior, core values of the service. So I think where people go wrong is when they start trying to be somebody they're not, especially when they get put into leadership positions, et cetera. Stay genuine, stay true to who you are, as long as you're following our core values and your character is solid. I think your individualism is kind of what makes you unique and what makes you special, and that we're not all the same. We all have differences, but there are certain things that are a common bond that makes us kind of a cohesive unit as Marines. So I don't think there's anything wrong with being an individual, as long as you're not stepping out of line as far as the boundaries of normal expected behavior, standards, orders, regulations, those kinds of things go. So in your personal life, sure, you should be your own individual self.
That's good, sir. I would say that I think there's a generational gap or a cultural gap, right? I would say. And how do we, as senior enlisted and senior officer, right? Because I know you're not always with your GP, but how do you, as a commanding officer, or how do you in that billet, how do you bridge the gap with young service members and young Marines?
Yeah, I treat them the way I would want to be treated. Put myself in their shoes. The bottom line is, yes, there's a generational gap, but there is one standard. It's the Marine standard. So what's expected of Marines is timeless. So I would say that, we're not catering our standards as we have a new generation of Marines coming in. Yes, they come from a different cohort than you, or especially I. Most of the young Marines now, they're my child's age, pretty much. But at the end of the day, you treat them with dignity and respect, enforce what behavior is expected of Marines, bring them up to our standards in the Marine Corps. Don't stoop down to their standards if they're not meeting the standards of the Marine Corps. That's not what we want to do. And it's fine if they have different beliefs, et cetera. But at the end of the day, there's a common objective of the organization, the institution, that we as leaders must uphold. How you go about that, I think, will go a long way to getting those to follow you. And that's part of the challenges of a leader, is that you have to influence people's behavior towards that common objective. And how you do that really comes down to relationships. Relationships you build with those people so they see that you're a genuine, authentic leader, genuinely concerned about their morale, welfare, well-being, personal, professional development, all those kinds of things, as well as taking care of the mission of the organization. That's
good. And for you, sir, it sounds like the service members you're basically child age, which is wild to think. I'm not saying that you're old. I'm just saying, because you still run 300, I'm assuming?
Yes.
The standard is set. The standard is 300. I like it. Well, you obviously, for your age, don't give anybody an excuse for your age. So I'd stay away from that topic, because I'm 36, but I still have a hard time running. But that's not an excuse, right? I'm talking about now. You're talking about mental toughness in the face of adversity, right? You talk about there is a generational gap, but there is cultural differences. But you said that we have a common denominator, and that's the organization. But we're kind of in a culture where mental resilience is not a common trait anymore. How do we, as senior enlisted and senior officer, how do we bridge that gap with young service members?
I think we have to test more. I think some of this younger generation needs to be tested more in a collective sense, not just individually, but I think more as a team. I think we're fighting a battle with complacency right now, where op tempo's down, real world deployments are down. Field time for a lot of Marines has gone down. That I think a lot of our younger service members don't really know what it means to be pushed. And if things do change, if we go from competition to crisis type scenario, I think there's going to be a lot asked of our service members. And I think we need to keep it fresh in their mind that we are part of a warfighter organization. And if we go to combat, if a major theater war type scenario kicks off, we're going to be asked to do some heavy lifting, and that Marines need to be ready to go. And you get there by making Marines routinely feel comfortable being uncomfortable. And that comes from just either the organization putting them through those things, or them on their own making themselves uncomfortable, whether it's their daily habits, physical training, mental agility type stuff, education, but doing things that challenge you mentally, physically, emotionally, so that when hard times come, they're very easily overcome.
That's good. You practice how you practice how you play, so to speak, because that's what you're kind of. I think that's what you're trying to say. And if you're not paying attention, that's actually it's good gouge. It's you practice how you play, no matter what sport you do, no matter what job you do. You do it to the best of your abilities because you serve a higher purpose, and that's not even religious. That's just kind of in generally speaking. I think that we can both agree, right, sir?
I agree with that.
Absolutely. So and. I don't know if you, and I would say that in your billet, in your capacity, you've heard of growth and growth mindset, right? And we talk about resilience in young service members. A growth mindset contributes to resilience, but how do we build a growth mindset? How do we let them know that, hey, this is where you should be at, vice a fixed mindset? And how do the two differ in being a young service member? What's the best approach here?
For one, I would tell them to map out what are their long-term goals. Where do they want to be in life? And I doubt many of them will say they want to be a Lance Corporal forever. So whether it's something service related or beyond the service, I would hope that they're looking to do something bigger and better than where they're currently at, and then just kind of lay out a roadmap for how they can get there. And that's going to, require education. It's going to require certain, maybe physical manual labor type stuff, self-improvement, self-reflection, taking a look at yourself. Where do I need to work on my skills or qualifications, certifications, those kinds of things. But I always encourage Marines to start looking at the next job. Take a look at your boss's job and be prepared to assume his or her job in the event that they get fired, they get orders, they get moved on, or maybe there's no one there to take that job. So people should always be looking up to what's next, what's out on the horizon, and start planning now for what you want to do 20 years from now. I'm coming up on retirement here in 3 months. I started planning my retirement 20 years ago. Wow. When it was but a thought for most people. But I'm in a position now that I am very well situated to retire because I started planning for it way out in advance. It's not just the past year that I started considering, what am I going to do in retirement? I have a lot more flexibility now, a lot less stress because I started thinking about this a long time ago. So I would say long-term planning is something that a lot of our younger Marines could use more of.
That's good. Yeah, we talk about transition too. Transition is a big piece for service members. They suffer the first 30, 60, 90, 120 days out of a contract, and it sounds like everybody's got to have an exit plan. Plan A doesn't always survive first contact, right? And that's that's on the same page. There is that 20 years ago. Wow, that's crazy. You knew that the military wasn't going to be the end all be all for you, and you started transitioning. That's awesome. That's good to hear. If you're listening, transitioning out, I would say that have an exit plan. I think Colonel Whitley said it best. You got to have an exit plan once you come in. This is not the end all be all. Don't put your eggs in a basket. And that's what I did as a young Marine. I did all my eggs in the basket. I knew that Marine Corps was going to be my life, but definitely some roller coaster ride for sure for retention and reenlistment. That's good, sir. I appreciate that. And for young individuals, we right now they don't learn from criticism. They ignore useful negative feedback. How do we fix that? I think that's it's fixable, but they don't like to learn from criticism. They want to be right. They don't want to be wrong, and they take it negatively in terms of correction. How do we attack that hill?
You need to show them what's in it for them. I mean, I think a lot of this generation especially is looking for, how do I personally benefit from this, whether it's something short-term or long-term, but give them a proof source of somebody who's benefiting from those kinds of, good behaviors, and show them, hey, look, this is what it has allowed me to do. And ideally, that's something that's attractive to them that can influence their behavior towards that same outcome.
Sir, that's actually, sorry about that. That's good, Gouge. We got to show them, set the example. And by example, you inspire them to the highest standards possible. We got to come back to family, right? I know that and family's a big thing for me. I've learned 14 years in the military compared to your 20 plus. I've done some things that put my family back on the back burner, right? And now I'm figuring out how to get quality time versus my time back, because I'm never going to get my time back. But in the midst of stress and work and the Marine Corps, I found my identity in the Marine Corps, and that's where I went wrong, right? So now that I have a 16, 13, 2-year-old and a 7-month-year-old, and maybe one more on the way, how do I teach values and life lessons where we're at culturally and environmentally speaking?
I think it all comes down to balance, never losing sight of what's going to be there or not when you come home, because the job's not going to be there forever. Although it is a huge part of what we do. It's our culture, it's our ethos, it's our lifestyle, so to speak. But your family will always be there or not if you don't pay them enough attention. I think even given, the hard times we have, whether demanding times we have where we're gone a lot or lots being asked of us, or it's stressful, whatever, that the family needs to know that they are still a priority. So even though that you might be away or you might be occupied or you're taking that phone call on the weekends or nighttime, that they're still a priority for you, and that you do, when you have time, to circle back to spend time with them and let them know that they are still very much important in your life.
That's good. That's good. It's the small things that matter. I hear that a lot from my wife. If you're listening, Minnie, I'm listening. Colonel Whitley said, he gave me a direct order. Sir, as a father, because obviously you're a father, how do you navigate challenges of raising your children in this rapidly changing world? I know that you touched on it a little bit on the last question, but in terms of directly to your children, how do you do that?
I think just regular engagement with them, just knowing what they're doing, what are they watching, what are they learning, just having regular conversations with them, and they'll tell you. They'll tell you the stuff they're seeing on YouTube, et cetera. And usually I'll let them kind of make their own sense of it. And usually they're pretty good about, distilling out what's good and what's bad, and otherwise passing their own judgment. But just being engaged, so you know kind of what they're doing, and if they're getting involved in the wrong things, that you can intervene before things go really bad. So I would say just being involved in their lives, kind of the intrusive leadership, same thing you do with Marines in the barracks. Go see where they live, go see where they work and play, those kinds of things. So if you pick up on indications and warnings that maybe they're heading down the wrong path, that you can get out in front of it before it becomes a real problem. So I think just staying engaged with them and seeing kind of what they're taking in, what they're being exposed to, who they're hanging around with, what they're talking about, what are their interests, and being able to mold and shape that as they develop. That's
good. Intrusive leadership. Same thing with your family. And be intrusive. Engage yourself in their life. That's good. I mean, I would say that it's kind of hard to do that with all the time being away. You got to find, you don't want to just mess up the groove, right? Because a lot of times, at least the way I feel and the way who I talk to, it's like if I insert myself, it kind of messes up the jive. Do you ever have that feeling with your billets and at the capacity you've been at?
Yeah, I mean, remember, I spent 3 years away from my kids, so I'm pretty well versed in that. So I would come home on a random weekend and then quickly depart a few days later. So yeah, I get that, and I think some of that is just kind of laying the ground rules ahead of time with your spouse and with your kids, so they know that, hey, when I'm here, I want to maximize the use of my time with the family, where you're not going to come in there and be disruptive to their life that is continued on kind of without you being present. You don't want to do that, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you're having enough interaction and involvement with them to make quality use of the limited time you do have with them. So, yeah, I agree. Not coming in there and changing everything, because that's like someone taking over a new command, and within the first 3 days, they cancel all the policies. There's all new policies in place, and we change the complete way we're doing business. And we've seen those people, and that's completely disruptive. It undermines trust and confidence in a unit, et cetera. So you don't want to be that person. So I would say just treat it as if you were on the receiving end of that. Would you want somebody coming in and disrupting your daily habits and your routine who hasn't been there?
That's good. That's really good, Goucher. I appreciate that. For those that are listening that are trying to get married, that are married and having struggles, that are divorced and getting married again, whatever the case may be, whatever the situation is, it's definitely, you got to be on the same page, especially when you're away and then come back and they're away and come back. How do you establish some boundaries for family, extended family, being in so long? I know you're thoroughly indoctrinated. To me, it sounds like you have marriage that has made it so far. What are some of the boundaries you set for your family, extended family?
My extended family? So none of my extended family lives close. So they're all on the East Coast. So we don't have a whole lot of time with extended family, although they'll come out to stay at times. I've never had a whole lot of challenges with extended family, so to speak. They've never been overbearing, if you will, as far as what we were doing with the kids, et cetera. And I would say the same thing goes for them too, is just, make sure they understand the military lifestyle, kind of what are the challenges you're going to be facing, seek them out when you need support, because they are going to be critical at times, especially if you're away, to help out the spouse that's left behind with the kids. That's a support network that's vital to kind of what we do as far as family readiness goes. But the same thing goes for them. Just manage their expectations as far as what your lifestyle is going to look like, that how it may be different from your traditional family. That's
really good. The boundaries are set. Those are in essence, boundaries, right? Those are some things that they need to look forward to. Same thing for our family, our immediate family. How did, and can you just share for the listeners how long you've been married again, sir?
It'll be 20 years in October.
20 years is a long time, right? I'm at 14, and I think and 14 is a long time, and 20 is even longer, for obvious reasons, right? But how do your relationship with your spouse, did you establish friendship in the beginning, or is it now like, no, we've established friendship now, we're genuinely want to spend time together because, I know the kids are just passing through. Is that something that we should keep in mind as married spouse service members?
I mean, I think that's something you're going to have to work on throughout the duration of your marriage. I mean, I think there's probably some unique exceptions to that, but I think for the most part, most marriages, it's a work in progress. Things aren't always easy. It's not always, rosy in a relationship, but that's something you're going to have to work on, especially when times get stressful, kids make things more stressful, moves, deployments, all those kinds of things come up. So you're going to have to continually work on that, on how each other is meeting the needs of the other partner.
I know that what makes a good marriage, things have to happen. And I think sometimes we get to a crossroads where we have second thoughts. And when we choose to stay, I think that's an establishment of trust. I don't know if you can agree with that statement or not, sir.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have trust, then you don't have much of a relationship. So I would say, yeah, that's probably one of the fundamental things you need in a relationship.
And when we get to that crossroads about having second thoughts, what can we do? And can we really say that no marriage is success? I mean, some marriages don't have dark times, but I think the majority do. And couples have been through really dark times. Can we both agree that, I mean, in your experience, obviously, do you think that is the case? And do we take a really hard look at the crossroads and say, look, I choose, and because I choose, this is me trusting the process?
Well, I mean, it's one thing, trusting the process, but I mean, I think you have to have faith in the relationship that you have with that other individual, that whatever your differences are, that you're capable of working through them, and that there's going to be a compromise, because you're never going to get everything you want. Your partner's never going to get everything they want. Are the two of you okay with that compromise? Just knowing that, okay, this person's not the perfect individual, but it's good enough for me. I'm content enough with that individual in my life. And then, we can move forward and continue this relationship knowing that we have differences, but we're capable of working through those differences and setting them aside when we need to in order to keep the relationship going.
And that takes having difficult conversations, doesn't it?
Sure.
Is that something that, so I've been in 14 years, right? And I did speak on having my identity in the Marine Corps and kind of losing myself to the Marine Corps. And that's just my experience. I'm not saying that's everybody, but how do we emotionally regulate? Because it seems like, for me, I've been numb over the years because of the billets that I've held, or the requirements the things that are required of me in terms of a leader. How do we emotionally regulate as individuals, service members, and have those difficult conversations with our spouse and with those service members under our charge?
Well, I think one way to differentiate is that when you have the uniform on, that your rank on your collar, your billet, your title, that gives you certain authorities. You don't necessarily have those authorities at home over your spouse. So I think the way that you would talk to a Marine who you're looking to enforce discipline, enforce standards, those kinds of things, it's going to be different than with your wife. And I don't recommend you treat your wife like some wayward Lance Corporal, because that's probably not going to go very well.
Oh, right.
So, I mean, I think there's an empathetic piece of this on both sides on how you treat, junior Marines, senior Marines, whoever, and your family. But just keep in mind that your family is your family. You're there because you have a blood common life bond with these individuals, and they're not there because you have authorities over them that are vested in you by the oath you took, or the promotion you took, or the billet you're holding, etc. So that's more transactional, I would say, at work, and sometimes with how you address and deal with people. And just realize too that your family is going to be there forever. So how you treat them is you're going to deal with that for a long time.
Wow. And did you learn? Have you always been this or did you learn this mindset that you have right now? You learned this through the years, or this is kind of like, hey, this is common sense, so that they know, like, hey, this is where you should be at going into a marriage, or this is what's going to happen over time?
I mean, I'd say a lot of it's common sense, but I mean, I've definitely learned some things just dealing with my own challenges in marriage, and also just seeing countless Marines that I've worked with that have had, challenges in their marriages, and just watching them deal with some of those things. So I guess it's probably a combination.
Yeah, I agree. I think I don't know if a common is common anymore, maybe basic, right? I would say it's basic sense. I don't know if common sense is a thing anymore, at least in my experience, right? Well, let me, I got a couple more things. I know your time's precious, and the listeners, I know you're not getting paid to listen, and I'm not getting paid to talk, but this is definitely good gouge for everybody. I got a couple more, sir, and I'm going to go off on a tangent here. Can you share some examples and experience where, let's see, maintaining moral discipline and challenging, the decision-making process, right? You have been in a different position than me, right? I'm a gunny. There's way different, right? You have way more authority under, Title 10, these federal regulations. How does your OODA loop work at that time, in those difficult times where making difficult decisions for the good of the organization, and it's going to affect morale, and not in a positive way, but definitely in a neutral way?
Yeah, well, I will say, especially, as a commanding officer for many years, I mean, you're going to get put in positions where you're going to have to make what's very likely going to be an unpopular decision. But as leaders, we don't get paid to be popular. We get paid to hold people accountable. So at the end of the day, we've got to uphold the values of the organization, not what our own personal beliefs may have us believe. So whether that's, holding one of your best Marines accountable, holding somebody you look at as a friend, or maybe even a mentor. But bottom line is, if they need to be dealt with in such a way in order to uphold the values of the organization, that comes first. And I think that's what makes us as Marines a little bit different, that sometimes we have to have the moral courage to step out and, maybe be somebody we wouldn't otherwise be, because it's for the greater good. The cui bono that people talk about, that, sometimes people just want to do what's comfortable, what's easy. They seek harmony instead of conflict, but sometimes conflict is needed to make progress. So bottom line is that's why we get paid more. Because sometimes you have to make those decisions, and sometimes you have to live with the consequences of those decisions, for better or worse. So I can't say there's a easy answer to that, but you just have to be guided by your conscience and our core values, and what matters most to the organization, not so much your own personal beliefs.
That's good. That's good. One more, sir. I'm learning a lot from you, actually, in the capacities that you've been in. Last one, real quick. I would say that moral discipline has evolved through the military, unless most of us, I would say that most of us are not always AJ squared away, especially when we first come in as young officers and young service members, right? We have lessons to learn, right? And I would say that over time and in space, we learn moral discipline. How has it evolved within your career from beginning to end now?
Well, I'll start with this. I mean, before I came in the Marine Corps, I was locked up 3 times. So I think I came in on the Jesus waiver when I came in. I probably would not be accepted into the officer corps today. But I use that to kind of maintain perspective, that, quite frankly, I am, as far as a person goes, my mentality, my outlook, and kind of how I deal with Marines and leadership, et cetera, my method now is not much different than it was when I was a second lieutenant, to be quite honest. I'm a lot older. I probably look a little different, probably in better shape, though, because I'm a little bit more disciplined now. And I think that's really what it comes down to. I think fostering a culture of discipline in what you do, whether it's from a moral sense, physical sense, mental sense, how you do your study habits, how you eat, how you do your physical training, how you employ your Marines. If you apply discipline to what you're doing, I think your long-term results are going to be way better. So as far as the moral discipline piece goes, I think the more senior we get, the more we're going to have to lose, that it's going to be more consequences for your actions. And then, oh, by the way, as you're put in positions of leadership, people are looking at you. And the more senior positions you get, you are a public figure, whether you like it or not, and people are looking for you to step out of line. So I think that it becomes even more important as you get more senior to kind of hold the moral line and be that example for the others that follow you.
That's good, sir. The last touch. I know your time's precious. So you're a busy man. If you had one thing to provide, and I know that you provided a lot of insight here. If it's one tangible thing that you can give service members right now for the toolbox, what is it? Over, you've been over what 27? I think you said 27 years, right?
Yes.
What's the one thing that stayed true to yourself? Common trend that you've taken from the beginning of service to now transition in service. What can you give them that's tangible, a tool for the toolbox right now?
I say that the more senior you get, just realize that the people that work around you and for you, you need them more than they need you. I think keeping a focus on those that work around you and not yourself. It's not about you. And that becomes even more important the more senior you get. So I think just staying focused on delivering results as opposed to seeking out status. I think if you have that kind of downward focus on those within the organization, they will take care of you just fine. The mission will get accomplished, and you'll get all the status you need by not directly seeking it out.
Good gouge, sir. I appreciate, again, your time. Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Daniel Whitley, hailing from Mickey West. Yes, hi. Let me, I would say this, ladies and gentlemen, this is Pit Talk, pulling pits and opinions with your host, Gunny G, where service members help service members, period. Follow, like, subscribe everywhere you get your podcast and on all social media platforms. Let me know how I'm doing. Any criticism is good criticism. I know your time is precious. You don't get paid to listen, and I don't get paid to talk. So, sir, I appreciate your time. And where can they reach you at if they want to learn more from your angle, from your perspective, from your vantage point?
They can either hit me up I'm on the global, at least for the next few months. Colonel Whitley, WHITLEY, or you can hit me up on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Again, your time is precious. I appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure, a true honor to get some good gouge from you, sir. I appreciate it. If you ever need anything from me that's within my means, you just hit me up. You got my number. And I guess now that I have comms with you, sir, and good rapport, I think that I'm going to put you on my electronic Rolodex for anything that for learning.
All right, Gunny, sounds good. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
Take care.
Pit Talk is a podcast featuring active service members who discuss their thoughts and opinions on various issues surrounding military life, current events, and history. The statements heard here are the opinions of its members and guests. These do not necessarily reflect the views of Department of Defense and are not endorsed or sponsored in any way. Listener, viewer discretion advised.